Waiting for the little red button here. And it is taking its time. Okay, well, that's going. I'll just talk real briefly. HackMD, if you're not signed in yet, I've signed in a bunch of you already. Please do so. I've just added a link. And I am now seeing the record button, so I will officially welcome everybody to the Podman community meeting on Thursday, February 17th, 2022. We don't have a whole lot of topics today, but I think we have one large one that Valentin's going to be leading us on for meta packaging for man pages, config files, and more. So without any further ado, Valentin, I'll hand it off to you.
Thanks, Tom. So here's a link to the issue, but feel free to click on it later on. So last weekend, somebody from Arch Linux opened up an issue, and there was big confusion at the beginning of the meaning of the containers/common project, which is a library we use for sharing code among Scopio, Podman, Builder, and Cryo. Now there's also the containers dash, not slash in this case a dash common package, which is used to ship, config files and man pages shared among these tools as well. Things like storage conf, containers conf, registries conf, policy JSON, all the stuff which is scattered across a bunch of projects, mainly containers/common, then containers/image, the /storage library, and so on and so forth. And well, this paired with a high frequency of releases that we cut recently in preparation for the Podman 4.0 release caused a lot of confusion. So I think when we break it down, we discussed it a little bit in an internal meeting in the team already, but it quickly grew rather big. So we said, okay, let's discuss it here. We have some time, and it would be great to have some input and feedback from the community as well. So I see two issues, but feel free to add more or less if you see fit. The first one is it is hard for downstream packagers to know what to package and at which point, because in the end, the containers dash common package should only ship with versions of the currently installed Podman, but that is nowhere really written down. So this is somehow knowledge that we have in the team and in the immediate community, but it's not necessarily transparent for downstream packages. So there is a difficulty in knowing when to package what and from which version of which of the 4 upstream Git repositories that I mentioned, which are common, image, storage, and well, it's only 3 in the end. So this is something that we should discuss or check whether we can come up with some kind of meta Git repository, which would, where we would do the work, where it could be, a sub-Git or things like that, where downstream packagers can just go pull it, do a make install, and then the packages and the the config files and the man pages will be installed. So they don't have to deal with it. So in this case, the additional work would be on the maintainer side, which may be a good thing. So far, we said, okay, it would be extra work for us. So we trust that the downstream packagers just get it right. And unless somebody screams, we're good. So here we're at the point where somebody was rather unhappy and ran into issues, even bugs in Arch Linux. Second issue that I see is that we have a very, very, very high frequency of releases close to the Podman releases. because we are in this release candidate phase. Prior to releasing Podman, we will fix bugs, and before each new release candidate, we go round robin and cut the release. If something has been fixed, a new one, a patch release for image storage and common, and this causes a high amount of releases, also contributing further to the confusion of what do I need to package downstream in which version at which time. I'll stop talking now and I think hand it over to Dan. You look like you want to say something.
Yeah, I mean, the containers dash common RPM package right now is basically it really gathers config files and man pages from the libraries, and so it's going out to container storage, containers image, builder, and containers common, and grabbing config files, man pages, and then packaging them up and shipping them out. And right now in Fedora, where we're sort of running that, we're not versioning that other than adding one to the previous version, right? There's no real link to anything. What I was wondering, is there any chance that there's anything in GitHub where we could put links into GitHub between the different repos so that we didn't have, right now it's just a shell script that we execute, update.shell in the Fedora package to go and grab the latest version of each one of these tools. Now, if we had a mechanism for linking, I think Tom did some kind of linking in GitHub for, I think, the compliance stuff and the, community stuff. Would it make sense to link all that stuff? Then when we release a new version of containers /common, that would simultaneously release a new version of containers-common with a version, and then we could version everything properly. Would that help?
I'm not sure if we can. So in theory, yes, this would help. In practice, I'm not sure if GitHub supports it, but Git does. So there's the concept of Git submodules. Chris was mentioning that also in the last meeting, the internal one, where you can add submodules to the Git tree in a specific version. So, there we have the control over the versioning, which is important. I'm not sure how the GitHub links work. If they only link to specific branches, this could be hairy.
Yeah.
But submodules would allow that. So, there could be a make file which will clone the submodules and then run, the specific make targets in each of these submodules. And this is, in the end, there could be one make install, and that could do it.
Because everything's tracked pretty well in containers common, although builder makes less sense, but we could potentially move the files that are. I think there's a pull request right now on builder to move. I think it's container file and .container file and back into man pages back into containers common, which would probably eliminate builder. Because containers common, it has Go mods for, it knows which version of storage and image it's being built with.
Chris mentions that there's something new now called Git subtree. Maybe that's an improved version of submodules. Yeah. But where would you create this project? Because if we would make it part of containers-common, I would imagine we could have a chicken egg problem.
No, I'm just saying if containers common was the source of truth for the containers-common package, then everybody, as soon as there's a containers common release cut, then you can cut that release. But it still doesn't solve the problem. That doesn't solve the problem of, figuring out is there a builder in a Podman that can actually use those config files yet. Right, because it's kind of a chicken and the egg, right? I mean, the way we're doing it internally is we're trying to line everything up with the Podman release. So we're cutting builder releases. I think we cut 3 builder releases during the release candidate phase. I mean, they're all minor changes, but it's kind of hard to, So when a Podman release happens, then to have the distros just go out and
They fetch the latest.
grab whatever Podman refers to, and then get those
Right.
out of other repos. And that's what we're doing internally. There's no formal process of that. It's just that Podman and vendors in build containers common, containers image, containers, and we try to line everything up to match what that is.
I mean, if we are using a shell script and we are going to continue to use a shell script or a make rule, the Podman's Go mod and Go sum knows exactly which commits of the dependencies are used. So we could just check out exactly those versions of ccommon cimage and get the manpages from there. The packages would still need to know about this, and this of course doesn't help if they ship different versions of the base dependencies in Podman, Scorpio, and Builder. But just as far as attributing which is the correct version of the files, it seems like something that should be possible to automate with the data that we already have.
Yeah, where would we pack it? Would GitHub? Right now, we don't have that really in a GitHub. So we put that into the Podman GitHub to build containers common, containers dash common.
It's a smart idea.
Yeah.
If it's always, I mean, you just said it, it's always tied to the latest Podman release. So the containers dash common should, in this case, only be updated, in lockstep along with Podman. So if we would make this make target or build rule part of Podman's make file, then we can say once you update Podman, don't forget to type make magic target, and you're good.
Yeah, make install downloaded dependencies or something. Have it place the files in desdir/etc and desdir/user shareman, and we're done. For online, for offline builds like those that happens with RPMs, there would still have to be a packaging step. But
right.
The only problem I see there is that most build routes don't allow for talking to the internet, so we can't really do a Git module or a Git clone during a package build.
yeah, but if you haven't created a subdirectory path at desdir, you can wrap that in another makefile rule that creates a temporary directory, installs and downloads everything in there and creates a tarball. Then it's an interesting question whether we would actually release that as an artifact or whether we would just tell all packagers to run that.
Doesn't GitHub, just kind of getting back to this kind of master repository idea, I think there's a mechanism in GitHub where there's like a magic URL you can pull from, and it will actually just give you I don't know if it's a zip or a tarball of whatever the repository state is at that moment.
Yeah, but it doesn't include the sub-modules.
Oh, it doesn't? Oh, that's annoying.
It will also only include files that are in the repo, so we would have to commit the output of the download step, and we would have duplicate files.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, you could do it in CI then, right? You could just have a CI job that or an automation job that runs. And
good point.
Yeah. With Siran, I'm using Git sub-modules, and well, I use make this to distribute a tarball for the releases. So I don't use the whatever GitHub provides, but they seem to work quite fine. Like it's a Siran is tracking libc spec with a submodule, and libc spec is tracking the runtime specs and image specs. And when you do git submodule update -- recursive, it will pull all the recursively all the submodules to the specified commit.
So in the case of CRUN, whenever there's a new release upstream, as the packager, I generate my own tarball using makedist, as Giuseppe said. So if we want to do something similar for Podman, we could. Yeah, but that would be, yeah, that would just kind of complicate the process for the downstream packager. And I guess Arch Linux and the others would have the same issue.
Right, but Lokesh, right now that the update.sh file is that we're running to create new containers common. If we put that into Podman, then the update.sh package for Fedora could just download Podman and get that script and then run that script to populate. Right now, that's all hidden from any other distributions, right?
Yes, sure, yeah, that should work too. Yeah.
And actually, we could do, because right now we're just grabbing everything off of master and off of main, sorry, and we should be grabbing whatever's in the go.mod file when we do that. That would be more correct than what we're currently doing. We just usually we understand that they're lined up, but there is potential for risk there. So I think first step is to put that script into Podman, make it available, make it a target that you can create or download those packages. And then we can figure out how to work that back into Fedora release cycles and Fedora and RHEL release cycles.
Sure.
Again,
by the way,
I'm sure that totally fixes it, but it does make it more obvious what we're doing.
Sure. By the way, Podman and Builda are okay, but as far as I know, even Cryo depends on containers common. Do we need to care about Cryo while we're doing this?
No, we don't. Cryo only uses Go code. Cryo doesn't use containers.conf. It has cryo.conf, but the user who reported it upstream also asked the same question. I understand. Yeah, it's from a packaging, it's easy for us because we know the dependencies in Go, and the rest is structure for manpages and config files. But in this case, long story short, no, we don't need to worry about Cryo.
The risk with Cryo would be if the manpages were out of date. Right, as you say, they're not using containers.conf.
Right.
The risk with downstream would be you have a containers.conf that is newer or older than the current version of Podman, and therefore it didn't work correctly. But manpages could be misaligned as well. So.
Or seccomp profiles. This is also something that I think this could be the most dangerous one if we either ship too old or too recent seccomp profiles.
Yeah. We could have separation within containers common itself if Cryo so desires. Like I could have a separate subpackage for Cryo specific subpackage.
Yeah, if needed. Anyways, let's look at you and I.
A user of Podman, and they are going to use the same config files. So they need to be in lockstep, or to an extent in lockstep anyway.
Right.
Because of registries conf and storage conf?
Right.
I think so.
Right. Yeah.
Right now, the Red Hat version of OpenShift ties Podman and Cryo together. So they're in lockstep there. But yeah, having Cryo and Podman on the same box with different versions is a recipe for disaster. So Lokesh and I will work together on on getting update.sh into, we'll rename it to something else, but into Podman so that it becomes more obvious for distribute. I don't think there's anybody on here that does a distro, but we will work that out. The other issue that Valentin brought up is us cutting many releases basically during the release candidate phase of Podman 4 or Podman whenever we're releasing it. I think we could do a better job of that, not having so many releases. The one caveat there is Builder, which becomes a little bit difficult because there's tests inside of Podman to make sure it doesn't have a developed version of Builder. But I think we could look into that so that we don't basically just allow us to add checksums rather than versioning of containers image and containers storage and containers common constantly. So I'm probably the biggest bad guy in that world, since I've just cut new versions constantly thinking there's unlimited integers. But if distributions don't like us doing that, then we can be better in the future.
Yeah, I think so. I think so too. This will release some, or as Matt mentioned this week, this will make the phase right before cutting a little bit more or a bit hotter than usual, because then, we need to cut many releases in a short amount of time. But I think we are in any case cutting many releases in a short amount of time. Just if we delay it to the latest point, then we can spare a couple of integers, and it's usually only a problem for rolling releases. Yeah. But there are many distributions out there. Arch is a prominent one. OpenSUSE Tumbleweed is one, and in fact, anybody at any time could pick them up, right?
Yep.
So if we tie them together, it's hard to package. What would be great is if we could create a containers bundle and release all at once, because this is somehow what we intend for each time, right?
Yep.
The tools are usually released as a bundle, but that's hard to see downstream.
Yep.
So it sounds like a good plan. So we put this update.sh with a new make rule or make target into Podman. Update packaging guidelines. Probably write an email to the mailing list so it's documented somewhere.
Yep.
That could also be part of the packaging blog post that I'm going to write for 4.0.
Yeah, great idea. Great idea.
I think going forward, we'll also vendor containers-common with the same version that's in containers/common, which at least link them a little closer together. Since they're intended to be, obviously we intended them to have some relationship. So.
My only hesitancy with backing off the number of RC candidates that we've had, it has been helpful for our QE team to get release candidates early and often. So I wouldn't want to, we'd have to come up with something to, they found 4 or 5 bugs. We want to spin something up quickly, get those bugs out and back to them so they can go ahead and test to make sure that they've been taken care of. And
right.
Yeah, I know that might cause churn, but how do you handle that?
We should definitely keep on doing the RCs. But so far we've been doing the RCs only for Podman, and all other tools and libraries have been, cut, discrete stable release.
Yeah.
So everything, all the tools and libraries were somehow in an RC phase, but everything but Podman, was, was tagged as a release candidate.
Yep.
So this was basically the problem. But I totally agree. We should keep on doing releases, release candidates. Absolutely.
We might have a Podman 4.1 coming out a few weeks from now, so we can see if we can get better practice at it when that happens. I have a
Yeah,
feeling
before-
Podman 4.0 won't be out for without needing fixes for a very long time.
It's a good idea. So before cutting the next minor release, we can sit down and think how to do the dance and then check how good we're dancing.
Okay, was that the only topic? Because I think Podman 4.0 should probably be brought up now for discussion.
That was the only topic that we had on plan, so we can move on to the open discussion. So Dan, it sounds like you have something you want to discuss. Go for it.
So a couple of things I just want to get out to community members here. Podman 4 is theoretically going to be released today, final release. Matt, you want to chime in on that?
We're waiting on one test fix to land, and then the test should go green. The tag will be pushed immediately after that. Once that happens, we will try and get a release blog out shortly, but every other component should be released. We're just waiting on Podman at this point.
Brent, you want to comment?
Absolutely. We've also, per the request from community, Lokesh has added packaging readmes in the new components that we've added, specifically Netavark and Aardvark, 2 new packages that Podman 4 needs. And I don't know, Lokesh, if I may put you on the spot, were you able to update any packaging notes for Podman that says they need Netavark and Aardvark?
No, not yet. I'll update that
Okay.
now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just as if there are packagers here, you'll need 2 additional packages that for Podman 4, and you could look at the Fedora spec. I think is one good place to look, but Lokesh will add that stuff as well.
Yep.
The way that this team is approaching the transition or migration from 3 to 4 is that, with regards to its network stack, is that if Podman 3 is already installed and the user, whether it's rootless or rootful, have a image and container store, if that's the case, in other words, they've run Podman, then the networking stack will stay as CNI. If they have not, or they run something along the lines of Podman system reset -- force, I think it is, then CNI will become the network, or I'm sorry, Netavark and Aardvark will be the network stack. For those of you looking to pound on Podman and whatnot, the latter would be best. In other words, use the new stuff and give it a good thorough testing and report back if you find problems.
And if you delete, you could delete all your containers and then it'll start using Netavark, right? Or will it?
No, you have to delete the whole store.
Storage, so you have to destroy it. So
Yeah.
Podman system reset.
And make sure your CNI network configs are gone too, right? Or did we?
Yeah, we now
supposed-
destroy those as well.
Part of the reset?
Correct.
Ah,
What is that? That is correct, is it not, Paul?
Sorry, can you say it again?
Yeah. Podman system reset -- force now also removes the existing network configurations.
Yes.
Okay.
great. Fantastic.
Okay, it's for the non-Linux platforms, Podman 4. Well, when we're talking about Podman 4 here, we're talking about, let's talk about Fedora. So Fedora release will not be available for Fedora 35, but there will be a copper build, just so we're not going to ship in a Fedora 35 because it's breaking change. It is available in Fedora 36 for anybody that's moved to Fedora 36, which is branched off of Rawhide. And that's what I'm running on my laptop now, and it's pretty stable. So in Fedora 36, Podman 4 will be default. Fedora 35 will stay at Podman 3, although it is available via Copper, and Lokesh is going to make links to where the Copper packages are located. For other Linuxes, that's up to who's packaging those distributions when Podman 4 will be available. We're hoping soon. For non-Linuxes, Mac and Windows, we're attempting to hold back Podman 4 going out until the till Fedora Core OS, our version of Fedora Core OS, or the version of Fedora for Windows has been updated. So we're probably looking at about a week delay for Podman on Mac and Podman on Windows. So once we declare it, probably add a week before we'll have the brew builds available, or the package for Windows, just because we're going to get way too many people who are trying to run Podman 4 against a Podman 3 server. And we're trying to control that as best we can.
You want me to expand on that?
Sure.
You want to get our details good? I think for this group, details are good.
Yeah.
So for what we're doing is yours truly is creating a Arch and a x86-64 QCOW, and we are putting those in a Fedora website so they can be pulled. We have temporarily hard-coded for Podman 4 to pull from that repo until Podman 4 has leaked into all the Fedora Core OS distributions. And really, I think more specifically, it would be for Fedora 36 when that becomes available. That should have a Podman, some version of Podman 4 in it. And then we will update Podman, remove the hard code, and everything should work.
Does anybody have any questions on any of this?
So the Core OS version would be 35, and then you will patch Podman 4 into a side channel. Okay.
Yep, temporarily. It also gives us
Core OS 36 is out. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, when 36 becomes available in their stable testing and devel streams, and it contains Podman 4.0, then we'll turn it off. And we may put some sort of a redirect or something in there to make that smoother, but we'll go from there.
So is this a separate stream then, or how is it handled in Podman?
It's the testing devel branch that we're building on, and I am overriding some package versions right now.
Okay. Yeah.
And hey, if you're building from upstream, you should already have the side repo enablement should be there. So if you want to test it, you'll see it pull, and you don't see where it's pulling, but you'll notice that the image name is a little more detailed in terms of its build date and the fact that it's -dev. Oh, and I should say that I have not built one with the final yet because we're still waiting for that to get tagged in. So if you grab one today, it will be RC5.
So
Yep.
What happens if if Fedora 36 is out and we switch it back? What happens to the existing machines? Do they update or like?
No, well, when we do that, let me just walk through that. So when Fedora 36 is ready, we will create a new point release, a minor release, that will remove the hard coding. So any new machines created after that will for sure be with official images. If they already have it, I believe the expectation right now is they'll have to remove their machine and recreate it. Though we could see if an update within it would also do it. I have not tried that.
Our goal would be to have update work, but there's probably a decent chance we're going to fail.
Yeah, I fear with the all the machines out there that people like they don't care about updating or they don't know any better. You know, it just sticks around and someday it starts breaking or the security vulnerabilities inside the VM starts creeping up. You know.
But it's auto updating by default. So the only time that happens if you're on a dead branch, like if this dev tree stops being updated or something.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it will auto reboot and auto update it.
So my answer to that is we'll find out together.
We could always make Podman start to complain badly about it, though, so to tell them to get off this old machine. I mean, they're not going to be happy if they have to recreate their containers and images, but if we get stuck with that, we get stuck with it.
I mean, does CoreOS have a separate I know with the Fedora releases, you have to run the special system upgrade thing. Is there something like this in CoreOS, or does anybody know if it's automatically?
It does do automatic within a stream. If I understand correctly. But as Anders says, we're in a slightly different stream, so I don't know if it will choose the testing develop stream and successfully do that or not. I don't know the intelligence in Fedora CoreOS for that decision. I'm going to guess there's a way we can force it with a command. But
I think Anders might have addressed some of that in the chat. I'm not sure, Brett.
Yep.
Just testing the 4.0 branch, and it has RC5, like you said. For the machine. I would assume it had 4.0 and RC5 also for the client. But...
Yeah. And I've been testing it, but mostly boot. Does it boot? Does it run a container? Does it port map? And then that's about it.
It sounds like we're winding down on 4.0. Anything else we want to make a point on 4.0?
The desktop thingy, any updates on that?
Which one?
Like the Podman Desktop app that has everything bundled and shiny, and the kind of Docker desktop replacement, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So we have we're continuing to work on that. So obviously, Podman Desktop is being worked on. Ashley's here, but we actually have internal efforts, Red Hat, to look at potentially merging CRC. Code-ready containers has done a similar application to what we're building, and we're actually having meetings next week to discuss figuring out if we should merge these together. Because internal Red Hat, we don't want to have two different, if you have code-ready containers and Podman installed at the same time, having two different apps for that. So Hopefully in the next week, we'll have a better understanding of where we're going to go with that.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Simultaneously there that we still have so that's the simplest one, because that's just really an app, in our opinion, in my opinion, that's an app for managing the VM, or managing Podman machine. Secondarily to that is the whole discussion around for people who played with Podman, I think it's called Podman Desktop Helper, versus, and I think we want to be able to support both of those, and the upstream version and what we end up shipping potentially in RHEL might end up being slightly different. So those talks will be going on over the next month, but Podman Desktop is not being released as part of Podman 4.0. And bottom line, I think we're probably at least a month away from shipping a Podman, the Podman Desktop tool.
Yeah, and I mean, it does sound like it will be at least a little synchronized with Fedora 36 when it comes to like official releasing, anyways.
Yeah, I think that's something we'd want in Fedora 36. Right now, our Podman Desktop was just being written for Mac, so whether or not we have Podman Desktop for Windows and for Linux, hopefully we'll figure that out next week.
So is it supposed to like bundle all requirements, or do you do like brew install Podman on the side, or?
My goal
Right
would
now,
be, yeah, go ahead, Ashley.
right now it's just brew install on the side, but ideally it should be bundled in the future, but we don't know. We have to talk more about that, I guess.
So the end product will be, you'll just do a brew install Podman Desktop, and that will pull in a Podman and configure everything. So yeah, I don't want people having to install two different packages for this. So you could either install Podman directly, or you brew install Podman machine, and it'll make sure that there's a Podman available. It requires relationship.
And then that will pull in QEMU as a dependency.
Exactly, it'll be the whole chain. But I mean, Podman does that now.
I was a bit impressed to see that the QEMU package was 1 gigabyte on the Mac, but someone included all 35 architectures available, including a microblaze emulator if you ever needed one. It's like super. So, hey, it's only disk space. So, maybe slightly download also.
We probably need to work with the people who package QEMU for brew to not do that.
Yeah, well, I guess QEMU will do it if you like just configure it without any flags. It might give you all architecture. I haven't really tried. Normally just do like 2 architectures or so.
So we want to take a quick tangent down QEMU road. There is a little experimenting going on right now with QEMU and VirtIOFS to finally fix our issue with file systems. And so far it's been, we're liking the results so far. So there is a effort to get.
Just tell them it works.
Yeah, it just works. Yeah. Okay. Well, it works. Well, definitely works.
We have been able to make it work.
Yeah, it's worked on one desktop in the universe.
Yeah.
For some definition of work, even. So right now, QEMU and so VirtIOFS daemon has been rewritten in Rust, and that version can run on a Mac. There was some fixes that went into Apple's operating system that we thought were broken 6 months ago, and they now seem to work. So VirtIOFS can actually interact with this VirtIOFS daemon, Rust daemon, on a Mac, and they're getting files back and forth, and it's looking very nice. The problem right now is the daemon is going to need some work, because I think on Linux it's based it expects you to just be able to create normal files on disks with different UIDs. That won't work on a Mac because the Mac is basically doesn't have the concept of user namespace. And so if you were running in a rootless mode, you're not allowed to create UIDs that aren't owned by you. So the VirtAFS daemon is going to need to have a mapping capability built into it. This was planned for Linux as well. So instead of writing files on disk owned by different UIDs, it will actually create files on disk owned by your UID. You'll have a Xadder telling it how to represent it inside of the VM as a different UID. And that stuff is sort of being worked on. But I think this will come up within probably 2 months. But between 2 and 6 months, we'll have VirtAFS support on it. And the people working on it are not directly on this team. We're more just trying to guide them on what we want and how quickly. But that's all right now.
And does it work on Linux now? Like if you have a Linux host running a Linux guest, will it work, or are they working on the same code for both OS?
I have a feeling it does work because VirtAFS works with QEMU now.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't tested.
So I don't think there's a problem. But if you try on Linux box with VirtAFS, I think there's 2 VirtAFS daemons right now. There's one written in C and there's one written in Rust. The C one is going away, and the Rust one is the future. So, but I think both of those would work on Linux at this point.
Okay.
But I think that they're again relying on you being in a user namespace or running as root when you're doing it, because they're not doing the mapping at this point. Right. So that's kind of big news, but that's probably Podman 4.2, 4.3 timeframe, I would figure. I got nothing else.
Just glad you said 4.2 or 4.3 instead of 5.0. I think Valentin probably is as well.
No, 5.0 is years away. Years away.
Okay. That's all that we had on the agenda. Does anybody else have any questions before we wrap up here? Brett? Nope. Okay. So given that, I will say that our next meeting is Thursday, March 17th. That's the Cabal meeting. We are not having a community meeting on March. It's an odd number month. So our next community meeting will be on April 5th, I believe, in April. Yes, April 5th is in April.
And that is St. Patrick's Day, right?
Yes. So our next Cabal meeting, everybody is expected to dress in green.
That's why I have my Irish shirt on, just because of the
There you
next
go.
meeting.
May have to bring it back for the next meeting. And I'll have to remember myself because I'm terrible about wearing green on St. Patty's Day. I always forget. And so unless there's anything else, I will thank you all for coming and attending and for participating. And thanks for the great talks.
Thanks, Tom.